Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. My name is Lisa Toy, Sustainability Coordinator at the School District of Palm Beach County. This Water Wednesday student webinar series is in support of Museum on Main Street, a traveling museum exhibition from the Smithsonian. In just a few moments, I'm going to share my screen and we will get started with our panel. One moment. Okay. So the Museum on Main Street exhibit called WaterWays is currently on display at the Dolly Cultural Arts Center in Belle Glade, Florida until February 26th. The exhibit is free to visit and was made possible by a grant from Florida Humanities with funds from National Endowment for Humanities. For more information about the exhibit at Dolly Hand, you can visit palmbeachschools.org/waterways. And if you are not local to Palm Beach County, you can visit the Smithsonian Institution's website to see if there's a traveling exhibit on tour near you. I'd like to thank our partner on this webinar series, Thompson Earth Systems Institute's Scientists in Every Florida School program. Florida teachers can request scientists like today's experts anytime. This session will be recorded and available for future use. I am very excited that we will be hearing from 4 amazing panel speakers who will help us to explore water-related jobs. And I'd like you to join me in welcoming our first guest speaker for today, Anne-Marie Sorrell. Anne-Marie Sorrell was born in Jamaica and migrated to Pahokee, Florida with her family to be with her grandfather, who was a farm worker in the sugarcane industry. Growing up in Pahokee, she was rooted in Palm Beach County's thriving agricultural community and our beautiful Lake Okeechobee, which supplies fresh water to residents in Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade counties. Anne-Marie is a philanthropist, award-winning business leader, and author. Some of the causes she supports that are important to her include social justice, issues impacting women and minorities, economic development, environment and conservation, and health and wellness. Anne-Marie is the president and CEO of Mosaic Group, an award-winning public relations and marketing firm. She is also the supervisor of Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation. Welcome, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for this opportunity. I'm super excited. Hello to everyone that is participating today. I want to talk about 3 different roles that I play as it relates in water and conservation matters. And so I'll start first with my elected position as Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District supervisors. I am one of 5 elected persons in this position. We are, in a sense, elected volunteers, but it's a great way to provide public service as well as bring awareness to various issues as it relates to agriculture and water conservation matters. And so I was elected in 2020, November 2020, by Palm Beach County voters. And what do we do as a supervisor? Well, one of the things we do, our district, we only have 3 paid employees, and those employees have various roles in really working with local farmers and nurseries in following the best practices as it relates to soil, as well as water conservation. So that could be looking at something as we may think is simple as the irrigation system, and making sure that those irrigation systems are, the most up to date, that they're not systems that will cause excess use of water, which, is one of our very treasured resources here on this planet, but definitely here in South Florida. But also making sure that if they do not have the appropriate irrigation systems in place and they need assistance in installing new systems, we then provide grants that we receive from other federal resources to those farmers to make sure that they are updated and they're following the best practices and they are conserving water as best as possible through their farming practices. So that's one of the major pieces that the Soil and Water Conservation District provides. In addition to that, we as supervisors have the opportunity to follow various water issues. I see we have someone here from the South Florida Water Management District. So we pay attention to what the district is doing, but we also pay attention to some of our other sources, such as Lake Okeechobee, which is the largest supplier of water in South Florida. For those who don't know, Lake Okeechobee supplies water to about 8 million residents across our region. So we pay attention to those issues that impact. It could be a drought, it could be a hurricane, it could be toxins in the water, it could be anything that impacts our water quality. We definitely, use our platform to educate communities and residents about these issues that they may or may not be aware of. So that's just a sample of what I do from a public service standpoint through Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District. I also look at matters that relate to environmental justice, and there are definitely careers that you can be a part of as it relates to environmental justice. For those who may not be familiar, that's when we look at, issues that impact communities, particularly lower income communities, communities of color, that affect them adversely because of some type of a cause. So it could be some type of plant that's placed there, water plant or power plant that's placed in a community that's going to have a negative impact on that community. And so we look at those types of issues to see, do people even know, and are they aware, and what can we do to prevent any type of negative impacts? So those are just some of the issues that I deal with in my role as a public official. So for anyone who is interested in running for office in the future, it's a great way to really be involved in your community and really serve your community, as well as I'm learning every single day in this position. There are many water districts across the state of, soil and water districts across the state of Florida and around the country. I'll now take it to my professional role under the Mosaic Group. So for those who are interested in entrepreneurship, or if you're interested in a career in marketing and communications, this is where I get to really have a lot more fun because I get to create and make water and environmental issues really, really fun and impactful, and what I say, sexy. And it's not always, water issues are not always, sexy. So I own a marketing and public relations company, and we work on various water or environmental type projects. So I'll give you an example. Right now, we're working with a city on the west coast of Florida, and we're helping them with a sustainability and resiliency plan. And so as you all know or may not know, coastal cities, for example, have a lot of challenges as it relates to climate change and sea level rise, and things like issues like that. So coastal cities are looking for ways to be more sustainable, to have a resiliency plan in place, whether it's, building, new seawalls or improving their infrastructure or their water tables, whatever that may be. We help them come up with the plan for that. So I work with engineers, I work with planners, I work with environmentalists, and they do what they do on the technical side. My job as a communicator and a marketer and public relations person is to ensure that the public understands what this actually means for them, and breaking it down in a way that is relatable and taking out all the technical terms, but breaking it down to where they can actually relate to, well, what does it mean if I, if it takes me, 50 gallons of water, or if my household use 50 gallons of water a week because of all the flushing and, dishwashing and laundry and all those different things. What does that actually mean for my community? So we take that information and we bring it to the public and, let them understand how what they do in their everyday lives impacts sustainability, impacts resiliency, impacts any type of water matters. So let's see, that's from a marketing standpoint. We also work on other water conservation type issues where, in one particular county, we're working to educate homeowners or residents and students on how everything from, again, washing your hands, brushing your teeth and leaving the water running while you brush your teeth, how that's not really conserving water. Energy efficiency type appliances that may use too much water, how they can now get rebates to purchase less, to purchase more efficient things for their household. So those are just some of the practices that I do within my work every day around, water issues and the environment. And so I'm not sure if we're doing questions at the end, right, Lisa?
Yes, we will do questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I wish I should have put up a PowerPoint, but I didn't. But so to add on to that, lastly, in addition to talking to people about those different issues that we may be working on, we come up with really cool, creative marketing campaigns, and we, do everything from branding. So I'm not sure how familiar our students are with when it comes to marketing and branding, but we come up with, cool, and I'm gonna try to pull up something here to show you all. So just give me a second. So we come up with like marketing campaigns, and there may be ads. You may see it on a billboard. You may see it on T-shirts. You may see it in your classroom. So there are various ways. I'm going to pull up the slide in here in just a second to show you. Okay, I think I can share. Wait a second. All right, so this is just like an example, if you all can see my screen, and I'm just gonna go from this current slide. So it comes up a little larger. So this is like one concept that we come up with. So this gives you an example, like we'll create a logo, we'll then create a mobile app. We may do a billboard like you see here. You may see the brand and the campaign on a bus. You may see it on a T-shirt or a water bottle. And so in this particular case, the drop stops here or no drops here. This is, water conservation initiative to educate residents, businesses, as well as teachers, parents, and students about how they can conserve water. And we created, Captain Drip Drop as like, your water conservationist. So this is just an example of what I do when it comes to marketing and communication. And it can be super fun because we get to really create all of this. And what's even more important is when we see people actually implementing the things that we have created. So that's my brief presentation about the types of careers, whether you want to be a public servant and be an elected official like me and my colleagues who serve as supervisor for Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District, or you can actually have a career that you love and enjoy in the marketing, communications, and public outreach, educating the public about different types of water conservation matters, environmental matters, and so on and so forth. So thank you, Lisa.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you for all the fantastic work that you're doing. I love Captain Drip Drop. That's so cool. And if you have any questions for Anne-Marie, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will have time at the end of our panel for questions. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ashley Smith, is an assistant professor in the Soil and Water Sciences Department at the University of Florida, based at the Tropical Research and Education Center in Homestead, Florida. She is a biogeochemist and ecosystem ecologist. As a biogeochemist, she studies how coastal habitats, including wetlands, mangrove forests, oyster reefs, and seagrass meadows, process and remove nutrients. Dr. Smith is especially interested in how human activities impact these functions. Her interest in biogeochemistry began after an undergrad research experience when she realized the impact human activities have on nutrient cycles, and she really enjoys being covered in mud. She went on to earn a PhD in marine science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She was a David H. Smith Conservation Research Postdoctoral Fellow at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. And at UF, she is currently researching the effects of climate change and sea level rise on coastal and marine ecosystems and the benefits that we get from coastal habitats. So thank you, Dr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. I hope everyone can see my screen okay. Great. I'm Ashley, and I'm really excited to be here with everybody today. As Lisa just pointed out, I feel like I haven't had a lot of schooling, but I'm really interested in coastal systems, and I am a biogeochemist. And I know biogeochemistry is a lot to explain. It's sort of all three sciences packed into one. So usually when people ask me what I do, I just tell them that I'm a marine biologist. And then I think that everyone wants to be a marine biologist. So people think that I spend my days on a boat studying manatee, looking at sea turtles out in the sun. But marine biologists can come in all different shapes and sizes, and we all can study a bunch of different things. So we have some marine biologists who study algae, like my friend Maya here, looking at codium, which is a green macroalgae. It's called dead man's fingers. You might see it wash up on the beaches. They can study horseshoe crabs, like my friend Savannah in the middle here. She's really interested in looking at the distribution of horseshoe crabs around the state. And they could also study corals and seagrasses. Like here are some colleagues diving deep down to see what's living on the sediment surface beneath the waters. But marine biologists can also study mud, and they can study water. And that's really what I'm interested in. And what's happening in the mud and the sediments, and then seeing how that affects the water and vice versa. There's this whole world of microbes that live in the sediments that are invisible to the naked eye. And they're so important for us in our environment. So today is World Wetlands Day, and I thought it would be an appropriate time to show you all the first photo of the core that I ever took. This is the first sediment sample I ever took in a marsh. It's the first time that I really learned what a marsh smells like. And that smells like sulfur or rotten eggs. But like when you take this core, you get this like whiff of this gross smell, but it's feeling like this uncooked brownie material, which is just this interesting combination of sensory overload in some ways. I don't know if you can see how excited I am in this photo, but this is that experience that really got me hooked on biogeochemistry and coastal and marine biogeochemistry. So as a biogeochemist, I get to study the biology, like microbes, like marshes, like marsh grass, like seagrass, and like oysters, and how they affect then the chemistry. So the nitrogen, the carbon, the phosphorus of the sediments, that's the geology part, and then also of the water. So I was lucky enough to work with with the TV show Mission Unstoppable, and they put together a little video for you all to show you a little bit more about me and my career. I think this should start.
They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but you know what's really powerful? Oysters. Well, this is a clam. It's all we could find. Anyway, this marine biologist will explain.
Sometimes I come to the ocean and just stare at the waves so that I can think and reflect like anyone would on questions like, why are oysters so good for the environment?
Oysters! I mean, I don't know, but you know who does? Dr. Ashley Smith. I'm about to go meet her.
Dr. Ashley Smith is a professor at the University of Florida. When it comes to science, she's not afraid to get a little dirty.
To be able to put my hands in the mud, feel it, smell it, sometimes taste it, and to do that for my career, it amazes me.
In addition to tasting mud, Ashley studies how oysters can help our oceans, and she's gonna show me how.
This is so beautiful. How come this gets to be your office?
I am a coastal biogeochemist.
Biogeochemist. That has like 3 different things in it.
I study the biology, like organisms, like oysters and microbes, bacteria, the chemistry, so like nutrients like nitrogen, carbon, and then the geology, so the sediments in the mud and how all that interacts.
You are going to tell me a little bit about oysters.
I set up a demonstration today to show you some of the benefits that oysters give us. Oysters are filter feeders. They basically are like the kidneys for the water.
How do they filter water?
Oysters will filter algae out mostly, and that's what they need for food.
Oh, wow.
And then in doing that, they make water more clear. So we can have seagrasses grow, and we can more light to the bottom. And it makes us like want to go swim in clear water too, right?
Yeah.
To show me the awesome cleaning power of these bivalve mollusks, Ashley set up an experiment. We just need 2 aquariums, some dirty seawater, a few handfuls of extra sand, and 17 oysters.
17. So
17 oysters.
an oyster's supposed to filter about 50 gallons of water a day.
There used to be so many oysters that they would filter the entire volume of Chesapeake Bay in 3.5 days. Now, it takes them over 1 year.
Because there's less oysters.
There's less oysters.
Why is that?
They're tasty. Oysters are overfished, so we've lost a lot from that. Development, urbanization, and we've lost that habitat for oysters. So that's wiped out a lot of their population too. Oysters are functionally extinct.
Functionally extinct? Sounds like oysters need our support. One way to help? Aquaculture.
Aquaculture is like farming in the water. My friend Nicolette is actually an aquaculturist, and she can tell us how she grows oysters.
Oh, yeah, that would be
Do you want to
great.
meet her?
I would love to.
Great.
Okay, just let you do your thing.
They're just gonna filter away.
Nicolette Mariano is an aquaculture biologist and a hard-working oyster farmer.
I just came back from my farm.
Is that somewhere that's like a specific spot in the water?
There's an area called an aquaculture use zone that the state of Florida designates for people who want to farm shellfish, such as clams or oysters.
With wild oyster populations struggling, aquaculturists are an important part of bringing oysters back from the brink. And even though Nicolette's oysters are grown to be eaten, they still help the surrounding environment and help wild oysters.
The benefit of farming is also that you are creating a farm for that, so you're not taking wild and you're putting more into the ocean than what you took out.
So oysters that are growing in aquaculture are doing the same things that oysters that are growing naturally do. They're filtering the water, they're removing pollutants, and we're getting all those same benefits. Yeah. But we're not harvesting the wild ones, so we get to have those reefs form. And the reefs have tons of other benefits, like habitat for fish.
Well, speaking of water filtering, do you think our oysters will be ready?
I think we should eat lunch first and then check.
I'm into that.
We took a 3-hour lunch to give the oysters time for science.
What? Wow, this water is so much cleaner than that one.
Yeah, while we were gone, the oysters filtered our water.
That's disgusting. This looks nice. I'd hang out here. I'd go swimming here.
Yeah, they removed all the particles and all the algae.
Well, you heard it here on Mission Unstoppable. Oysters, clean water. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I think we should thank our oysters.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Very good effort. Thank you. I didn't forget about you, Sebastian. Grazie. You were actually working really hard. I saw you. Obrigado. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. I love what you're doing. Love the smile. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Ashley Smith, for teaching me so much about oysters and how they help the environment and ways we can get them back into the ocean. Thanks. I'm gonna go stare at the water, if that's all right.
You should.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you love? I didn't always know that I was going to study oysters or that I would grow up to be a faculty member at the University of Florida, or what a biogeochemist was for that matter. What I did know is that I liked math and I liked to be outside and I liked to be in the water, and that nature kind of amazed me. So growing up outside of Philadelphia, I never really thought about where my food comes from or where my water went or what watershed I lived in for that matter, or even like why we have seasons. But through summer camps and clubs and teachers, they really brought out my environmental awareness and gave me this foundation to pursue this career that I now have, which involves solving these complex problems. So today at the University of Florida, I get to study how our actions impact the environment and how we can harness the power of nature, like our oysters and their biofiltration capacity, to provide us a lot of benefits. Every day I get to learn something new about the world around me, and I just am really thankful for my friends and mentors and colleagues who have helped me learn that the world is your oyster. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for sharing your very interesting career. It was so cool to see how the oysters filtered the water. We will move on to our next speaker, Dr. Carolina Moran. Dr. Carolina Moran is the District Resilience Officer with South Florida Water Management District. In her role, she is responsible for coordinating resilience efforts across federal, state, regional, and local agencies, advancing scientific research and data analysis to ensure the district's resilience planning and projects are founded on the best available science, and developing and implementing comprehensive resiliency goals to mitigate and adapt to the challenges facing the district's infrastructure and core functions from sea level rise and other climate change impacts. Carolina has nearly 20 years of experience working on water resources planning, management, and regulation, water and climate resiliency, water allocation rules, and conflict resolution, hydraulic modeling, decision support systems, and GIS. She holds a PhD in civil and environmental engineering, water resources from Colorado State University, and a master's degree in water resources engineering from Paraná Federal University in Brazil. Currently, she serves on the Florida Water and Climate Alliance Steering Committee, Southeast Florida Regional Climate Compact Steering Committee, and the Board of Directors of South Florida Hydraulic Society and Resilient Utility Coalition. Mom of 2 boys, Carolina enjoys watching them play Little League baseball and visiting new places with her family. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the invitation. A pleasure to be here in this incredible panel.
Of course. I was having some technical issues. Would you be able to share your screen for us? Thank you.
Let me do this just a second. It was working great in the beginning, so give me just 1 second here. I'll bring this up. Share. Yeah. Can you all see? Yes. I am on the last slide though. All fine?
Yes, looks great.
Great, thank you. So again, thank you for being here. I am so honored to be in this panel, and also was happy to hear Marie presenting here. Also, Ashley, so great presenters, and so many ways that we can see water and work with water. I am passionate about water. I was born in Brazil. Brazil is one of the countries that has the most water. We have one large basin, it's called the Amazon basin, and we really have one of the largest rivers in the world. And I grew up with this kind of talking about water and how relevant we were as a country and the work we could do to really preserve this incredible resource and the connections with the environment, the urban areas, everything that we do that really depends on water. Just a quick glance, you don't need to learn about Brazil, but when you think about a huge country and you think about like, oh my God, they have so much water. Water is something tricky because yes, we do have the largest river, but this river is located where we have less people. So we have the most preserved area, a forest, and not a lot of people where we have tons of water. And then we have a really dry region. The Northeast is very dry, and I would say one of the poorest ones. Also, probably as a result of this like drier condition. We have industrial and urban, really like large centers in the South and Southeast. They contribute a lot to pollution. And we have like new areas being developed in the country, like the Midwest, where you have like new agricultural land being developed in very sensible areas. We have a Pantanal, which is very similar to the Everglades that we have here in Florida. So just interesting ways, different ways that we have different issues and challenges to deal and plan and manage water. Next one. Oh, it's me. So I actually did my first degree, and I wanted just to talk to you a little bit about like my experience. So my first degree was on urban planning. I did a lot of water resources from an urban planning perspective, and then I moved to civil and environmental engineering just because I had this. I apologize. It's probably my kid looking for the iPad in the wrong time. So yes, I have this. I initiated this urban planning, moved to civil engineering, went to work for an agency in Brazil, a water agency, and then came to the US to work on my PhD. So moving a little bit, transitioning to different fields, but maintaining that strong connection with water from urban planning, from engineering, and all those perspectives that we do. And then from Colorado State and finishing my PhD, here I come to Florida. I have been working with water in Florida for about 6-7 years now. We are surrounded by water everywhere we go in Florida. So we have many miles of beaches. We have the Everglades, we have urban areas and many lakes around us. So I think water is very relevant, and we have a large, really abundance of water, which really highlights the importance of us looking at that. I work for an agency that handles water, which is very nice. So our major responsibility as a governmental agency is to look at water. We were created in 1949, many years ago. We extend all the way from Orlando to the Florida Keys. We have already 8.7. We are actually getting to the 9 million mark already, residents in South Florida, and many canals, pumps, and things that we operate to maintain. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but I think the interesting thing here is how we manage water. We manage by looking at how much water we have, water supply, and Marie talked about that in the beginning. Water resources available for our use, the environmental use. We also restore and help to protect the ecosystems, and we also protect the communities from flooding. So different ways, but like all interrelated, and we have a very strong link here in Florida on that. We have many people. I know you heard about from a biologist. You heard from Anne-Marie. You're hearing now from engineering, planning, but we have like accountants, attorneys, land managers, communication teams, machine operators, artists, writers, people that only deal with the climate. So it's a very diverse workforce, looking at the water as a whole set and seeing how they collaborate together for the solutions and for the implementation of our mission. Okay, so let's just giving you a picture. I like those two pictures because it makes the connection between the natural systems and the, I would say, developed urban engineering design systems. They all coexist in Florida. They are all tied together. They one depend on the other. And I think the interesting thing here to see is that how water is the central role in the way we see that. So for the natural systems, water plays an important role in recharging the aquifers, in maintaining estuary discharge, wetlands, rivers, springs, lakes. And this is all, of course, I think all of us were exposed to the water cycle. So of course, it depends on how water cycle it is, but also on how we manage and how we can maintain those ecosystem environmental really healthy. And we have a water in an urban area. So we do a lot of work, not only on restoring those ecosystem needs, but we also look at the urban area. So how much water can we maintain, can we conserve, can we protect? So we have canals that we drain. We cannot drain them too much, because if we drain them too much, we allow for the saltwater intrusion to come and get really close to our water supply sources. So it's really an engineering built system that we operate every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, on maintaining all those goals, like making sure we have the right water at the right time, the right place, water supply, and protecting all the communities from flooding, and having this connection with the water for the environment. And one thing that is very increasing the complexity on how we manage this and bringing new considerations are really changing conditions. So what we have been seeing is that with climate change, sea level rise, we see new numbers. So we see changes in the way The salt water is moving inland, how much evaporation, how much rainfall, sea level rise. And all of this have a very big impact on how we manage and how we plan and how we build and maintain, operate the system as a whole. So it's a complex fund. We use a lot of models to understand all of that. We talk a lot, we interact with all the stakeholders. And what we are doing, I just listed here some priority actions that we are doing in terms of, okay, what are the key things we need to do now? And I think what the challenge we have is data. We need data, tremendous amount of data. So we monitor already a series of different data like rainfall, evapotranspiration, as I mentioned, but also like water quality, all those aspects. And we need to grow even more because we need the data to make the decisions. We have assessments, vulnerability assessments that we do to understand how our system will behave in the future. From those assessments, we look at, okay, what is the kind of infrastructure that we need to continue to provide flood protection? So we need to build new things. We need to build structures. We need to build pumps. We need to make interconnection between basins so that we can really harden and protect our communities from flooding. And at the same time, we need to think on water supply. So I know Anne-Marie gave a really huge speak, and she presented so many important points about the importance of conserving water to begin with, our precious resources here. And not only that, but like looking at how can we manage those water supplies on top of conservation, finding perhaps some new sources and some waterways that we can really have a secure and ensure our water supply for the human, agricultural, and environmental needs. We restore natural systems, as I mentioned. We have to continue to do that. The more we do, the more we are really being resilient to all the impacts that we are anticipating. And we coordinate a lot. I talk quickly, but I think Anne-Marie pointed to some great examples that we all have to do in terms of educating, coordinating with the local communities, and also partner agencies. So making everybody understand what we need to be doing here and really partnering. And then I'm trying to transition, I think it's just as low. And just to finish this, I think we see that the resiliency, this role, it's a new role in the agency. I'm there for 2 years now. It's the first time they have a person leading with resiliency. So looking at the water and looking at the future conditions and how this really imply and affect everything that we do. So we are really looking at this. We see there is a problem. We see there are so many interesting opportunities. We understand it will take some time, coordination, money. We will depend on new technologies. We really depend on new technologies. We don't have the solutions to all the problems yet, especially when you bring the water quality component, when you bring the environmental conservation. We need to make all those pieces really work together. And the solutions to not cause other types of problems. So we need to understand the problem as a whole. And for this, we need collaboration. We need to understand what everybody's thinking, what are the solutions, all the scientists, what they're doing. Understand, bring this awareness to the community so they can also help us to understand and really like look at you all, like this new generation of young professionals that are hopefully talented and will be like liking the water resources and bringing more and more solutions to our next steps. So with that, I'm just thinking, how do you see your future? Hopefully water isn't there. And thank you again, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moran. That was so interesting, and you are so right about collaboration being key. Thank you again for sharing your work. All right, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Eve Samples. After 2 decades as a journalist, Eve Samples joined Friends of the Everglades in early 2020, recognizing an opportunity to meld her passion for environmental reporting with the Friends' legacy of grassroots advocacy and education. Eve previously worked as opinion editor for the USA Today Network, Florida, as a columnist and editor for TC Palm and Treasure Coast newspapers, and as a reporter for the Palm Beach Post and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. She is a native of Miami and a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I would like to thank you for joining us today, and I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Eve Samples. I appreciate the nice introduction. I'm Executive Director at Friends of the Everglades. We are a nonprofit that was founded in 1969 by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And I'm going to share my screen, and I think it's particularly relevant to speak on this panel of interesting, smart women, because we were founded by an interesting, smart woman in Marjorie. So you'll see her picture here in a moment. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was a fascinating woman, and she is probably best known for writing the book, The Everglades River of Grass. And she published that book in 1947. This is actually the 75th anniversary of the book. And it really redefined the world's perception of the Everglades. And if you're listening to this talk, you may have a vision in your mind of the Everglades being down at the very southern end of the peninsula in Florida, just Everglades National Park. But we really think of it as stretching from north of Lake Okeechobee, down both coasts and into the Florida Keys and Florida Bay. So that's correlating with the South Florida Water Management District's work that Carolina showed. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do at Friends of the Everglades and what we do as an organization. So I mentioned Marjorie's book, and I just want to read the first 2 lines of it because, again, people saw the Everglades as kind of a swampy wasteland before this book was published. And through storytelling and through advocacy, she changed the perception. So she wrote, "There are no other Everglades in the world. They are, always have been, one of the unique regions of the earth, remote, never wholly known." Very poetic words that inspire us today in our advocacy to protect the Everglades through policy and preservation. So this is the 75th anniversary of the book, and partly because of that, Hulu, the video streaming service, has made a really fun animated video about Marjorie's life. And if any of you are interested in learning more about her, this is just a screenshot for it, but you can Google Hulu Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and you'll see the 7-minute animated video. It's on YouTube. It's really well worth your time and will tell you more about her history and our continued work at Friends of the Everglades. So why did Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, 22 years after she wrote this famous book, decide to create a group, Friends of the Everglades? Well, it's because in 1969, there was a very terrible idea proposed for the Everglades. It was actually just north of what we now know as Everglades National Park. It was in Big Cypress National Preserve, and there was a proposal to build a major international jet port in the middle of really precious wetlands. And Marjorie decided she wanted to fight this, and a friend of hers said, "You need a group to fight this." So she created Friends of the Everglades. And fortunately, we won that battle with a lot of other friends and allies and prevented the jet port from being built. But one runway was actually built in Big Cypress. And if you look at Google Earth today, you'll see this image. It stands there. And I look at this often because it's kind of a monument to some of the short-sighted decisions we make in Florida, and not just Florida, but Florida has a lot of them. And just imagine what this scene would look like if the whole airport was built, and the air pollution and water pollution and just obstruction of the flow of these precious wetlands that would have occurred if we had allowed it to move forward. So we look for the other bad ideas that are out there now because they haven't stopped coming, and we work to prevent them through our advocacy and preservation efforts. Okay, so today I was really interested in hearing Ashley's talk about oysters, because we at Friends of the Everglades think a lot about oysters and how valuable they are, because they do serve a really important purpose in filtering water. So we collaborate with scientists, and we spend a lot of time thinking about this threat to the greater Everglades ecosystem, which is toxic algae blooms. And oftentimes they originate in Lake Okeechobee, and because of the way we've replumbed Florida over the decades, they end up getting discharged from the lake. The water is not cleaned. They're discharged east and west, often to the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee, where they actually will kill oysters, unfortunately, because the toxins they carry and the shading of the sunlight that oysters need is prevented. So this is a big part of what we work on today. This is the greater Everglades I was describing. So you know, the Everglades proper, Everglades National Park is down here, but the Greater Everglades is about 18,000 square miles. And through the course of development in Florida, we've diverted about 50% of the historic flow of water. And when we think about Everglades restoration, so much of it relates to restoring that historic flow, slow meandering down to the river of grass. And it's not, oops, sorry, you get a panther preview there. It's not just about the flow of water, it's also about the quality of water, the timing of when that water is moved and getting it to the right places. The Everglades in the national park really need more water than they're currently receiving. We've cut off much of that flow for development, for hundreds of thousands of acres of agriculture, mainly sugarcane south of the lake. And as a result of those bad plumbing decisions decades ago, the water gets discharged east and west instead of making it south. And that's when we get those toxic algae blooms. So again, that's a lot of what we work on at Friends of the Everglades. I've spent many hours recently tracking the Army Corps of Engineers' new Lake Okeechobee management plan that's being written right now. And we're trying to be a voice for ecosystem protection and public health protection as part of that plan, because those toxic algae blooms aren't just bad for oysters and marine life. We know from research that they're really bad for humans too. They can cause many problems for human health. So the Greater Everglades includes some of the most remarkable species in the world. The Florida panther is probably the most notable. There are about 200 or so left of them in the wild. They're among the many species we think about when we advocate for Everglades protection. And of course, the juvenile alligators. This was sent in by a friend of the Everglades who likes to get out and spend some time with his camera. And like Ashley, I too like to get in the mud occasionally. And this was at Big Cypress National Preserve. That's me on the right. We did a swamp walk behind Clyde Butcher's gallery on Tamiami Trail. And, you know, I joke about the mud, but actually, if you ever have a chance to do this, you will find that it is not muddy. Surprisingly, you're walking on limestone. And it's just an incredible experience to be truly immersed in the Everglades. And no, we did not get attacked by alligators or snakes. So for those who want to learn more about the Everglades, we've developed an Everglades Learning Exploration Kit that talks about the Everglades today versus yesterday. You can find it on our website, everglades.org. Much of today's Everglades is a product of engineering and re-engineering. Sometimes those decisions are helpful, sometimes they're harmful. One of the most helpful things we've done for the Everglades is stormwater treatment areas that are actually managed by the South Florida Water Management District, because they mimic what Mother Nature did in the first place. They're man-made marshes that take up phosphorus nutrients that can contribute to those algae blooms I mentioned, and then clean the water to send it south. And hopefully we'll get it sent south in enough quantities to the Southern Everglades in the future. Just a phrase I think about a lot. Some folks attribute this to Marjorie the Everglades. Saving the Everglades is a test. If we pass, we may get to keep the planet. I think about that often, and I really am proud to do the work we do at Friends of the Everglades. I get to continually learn, spend time in the outdoors, and help translate what can be really complicated scientific information and policy information so that everyday Floridians can understand and advocate in their best interests. So thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be on this panel today.
Thank you so much, Eve, for that amazing presentation and all of the great work that Friends of the Everglades is doing. Wow, what a great panel of speakers. I appreciate each of you being here today, and have some questions if you don't mind. And again, to our attendees, if you have any questions for our speakers, go ahead and put your questions in the chat and we will ask our speakers. But I would like to know, and we'll start with Anne Marie, what is one piece of career advice that you would give to students? And I'll ask this of all of you, so if you want to think. And Anne Marie may not be on at the moment, so we will go to Ashley. What is one piece of career advice you would offer to students?
I would say to take opportunities when they come. And it might not be fun in the moment, but there's always valuable lessons to learn. So even things that are like, I don't know, I tell everyone to remember that even a failure is a win. So like failing forward, you don't know how good things can be or where they're going to go. So just get excited and try things.
That's great advice. And Dr. Moran, what advice would you give to students?
I think the first advice is get informed. That's very important. We have so many interesting issues to solve as a whole. And I think we have a mission to really make sure that as all those students kind of get informed, understand, and also what is important to do. So I think by going outdoors, by living, by understanding the environment, by understanding, making the connections to all those pieces, I think you build this basic understanding about what is key for us here in Florida and also for the future generations. So I would say keep doing the great work, get engaged, get informed, and help us. All of us really need the young generations to come in and help us with the solutions we need.
Definitely. And Eve, what advice would you give?
I'd say pay attention to what makes you curious and pull on those threads, because if you're naturally interested in it and gravitating toward it, you're going to be much more satisfied spending decades of your career in it. And that might change too. I spent 20 years as a journalist and then found I was really interested in environmental issues and had the opportunity to pivot in that direction. So pay attention to that and then follow it. What makes you curious?
Great advice. And I think Anne-Marie had to take a call, but once she gets back on, we'll ask her for her advice. We have a question that came in for Dr. Smith. What do you like and value the most about your career?
What I like the most, I don't like the paperwork, but I think everybody would say that about their jobs. What I do like the most is that I get to go to the lab every day and I get to answer questions that I'm curious about. So on my drive into work, I'm usually looking out the window and thinking about the world around us. Like, oh, I wonder what this stream's doing as I drive over this canal. And I get to come here and actually design an experiment to kind of follow my curiosity. And the fact that I get to have graduate students too is also really exciting to help them come up with these cool ideas about what they're excited about, what like little pieces that they want to know more about. I think that those are really what I like and what I value is that collaboration between me and my graduate students and the freedom to kind of follow my questions and curiosity.
Awesome. And Dr. Moran and Eve, if you want to chime in there too, what do you like best about your job?
I have a lot of paperwork, I have to say. Tons of paperwork, computer every day, most of the time. But I do get to meet incredible people. I see the commitment from everybody in terms of finding the right solutions. Everybody really wants to collaborate. And I see that we have so much, I would say, valuable reasons to be doing this work. And we all partner in pursuing the big gain for our South Florida, for the water resources, for our ecosystem restoration needs, for water supply, for flood protection. So I think the part that I like the most is really like interacting with so many great people that have so great knowledge and that we can all together find the solutions. Like it's so interesting. Sometimes we're dealing with something and then you're trying to solve a problem and you think this is the biggest problem. And then somebody come with a small sentence, a big kind of contribution that is this solution that you need for that time. So I would say it's learning every day and it's like making those connections and partnering. So I really like this part that I get to meet a lot of people, a lot of committed people.
And I'll just add two quick things. The most satisfying part of our work at Friends of the Everglades is when we can improve public policy. So the Everglades Jetport is our prime historic example, but there are many more examples like that. State laws that are proposed that would be damaging to the environment, or development projects that would be damaging to the Everglades and connected wetlands. So when we have a chance to stop those or improve those, it really feels meaningful. And then second, I'll just say getting out in nature, there's no substitute for that. During COVID, our small staff tried to get out there once a month and do a hike or go paddling. And it really just reminds you what you're working for.
Very true. And Anne-Marie, what advice would you give to students, or if you'd like to also share what you like best about your job?
Oh man, so what I love about my job, in addition to working on environmental and water issues, I get to work on a lot of different community impact initiatives, but the real impact is just that we are making an impact every day. We're informing people, we're letting them know about things that affect their daily lives in ways that they may not normally think of it. And to me, that makes the world of a difference, not just for the individuals and their households, but also our planet. So just being able to just really make an impact doing what I do, doing what I love, being able to be creative. I love the creative part of marketing. We get to really bring things to life, bring issues to life for people in a very different way. And we're able to meet them with the message that that they're able to relate to. So I think those are some of the main things that I love about what I do. And what was the other? Oh, advice. Go for it. Reach out to persons like us. If you've heard whatever you've liked that you heard here today, whatever resonated the most with you, reach out to us so we can, mentor and guide you. But explore. I think what I love about water and the environment and our planet is that you have the opportunity to really explore everything that you could possibly think about doing. And learning from these ladies here today, I've learned something new about different careers I hadn't thought about. So the possibilities are endless. And just go for it. Just be involved, make an impact, love what you do, and just make sure something that you can get up out of bed every morning and absolutely love, and it brings you joy at the end of the day.
Definitely. And to your point, communication is so important in what we do in our careers every day. And as we can see from our amazing panel of speakers, we have so many different types of jobs that all have to do with water, from science to marketing and communications, government, nonprofit. There are just so many types of jobs to learn about. And before we go, we have just a couple more minutes. I was hoping that you would be able to offer some advice for students about how they can gain job experience. That's so important for students, and sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get that initial experience. So how can students gain experience in their interests and also perhaps in your organization, maybe?
I can take that first if you like. Well, we're always looking for interns. And if you're a high school junior or senior, we welcome you. I do believe in getting work experience very early on, build that resume for college. So we're always looking for interns. Internships are absolutely the way to go. Of course, volunteering for organizations like Friends of the Everglades is another great opportunity. So, and you'll get community service hours. So volunteering in your community, that's the way to get experience and to just get a better understanding of these different careers and these different organizations, but also internships for the summer. Job shadowing is another way, especially like when you're on spring break or winter break or Thanksgiving break. It's a great time to find someone to job shadow for a day or two. So those are definitely ways that I, recommend that you get involved, and you can always reach out to the Mosaic group, especially if you're interested in marketing, communications, a different way of interacting with our environment.
I second that. Volunteering, internships, and shadowing. You hit it, Anne-Marie.
Awesome. And if you, I think Dr. Moran, you were muted.
I was just going to say that we have so many research opportunities as well in coordination and collaboration with universities. Our agency works a lot with universities, and we do have many interesting projects that are really led by students, and some of them can go early on and kind of help to contribute with some ideas, in addition to what everybody already said.
And if you'd like to add your email addresses, if you want students to reach out to you, feel free to do that in the chat. We had one other question come in, Dr. or Eve Samples. Did it come as a surprise to you when you switched your career from journalism, that working in the Everglades is what you wanted to do?
I had been writing about the environment the last 10 or so years of my 20 years in journalism. So not a total surprise. I kind of was slowly gravitating to it, but it's always scary when you make a big career change. So even though I wasn't surprised, I had to take a risk, and it worked out really well. And I haven't looked back, and I'd encourage all the students listening to not be too afraid of risk if it's well calculated.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. We are right at the 5 p.m. mark. So thank you all so much for your presentations and for answering questions for students and for inspiring students and our young generation. So thank you again, and thank you to our attendees for being here. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.